We live in a paradoxical world where interconnectivity is constant, yet the feeling of isolation seems to be on the rise. Human beings are social creatures, shaped by the need for belonging, connection, and meaning. However, in an era of instant communication and social media, loneliness seems to have become a more present companion than ever. So, why do we feel so alone? The superficiality of modern relationships. Social media is often cited as one of the main reasons why we feel disconnected, despite being more connected than ever. On digital platforms, interactions are often brief, lacking emotional depth or meaningful dialogue. We follow each other like photos, send short messages, but rarely engage in authentic and intimate conversations. This type of interaction promotes an illusory sense of community, where we are present for each other, but only superficially. The lack of deep conversations and genuine exchange of experiences can lead to a growing sense of isolation. What seems to be virtual closeness can actually deepen the feeling of loneliness, as there is no real involvement, no true emotional connection, disconnection with ourselves. Another crucial aspect of loneliness is internal disconnection, the one that occurs within ourselves. We live at such a fast pace that we often don't have the time or space to reflect on our own emotions, desires, and needs. Often, we are so concerned with what others think, with social expectations, that we neglect our own self-knowledge. This lack of internal dialogue can result in a feeling of emptiness. When we don't know ourselves deeply, we become unable to understand our emotions, seek help, or even cultivate self-compassion. This internal disconnection can be a source of intense loneliness because, even in moments of interaction with others, we don't feel seen or understood, and often this happens because we don't fully understand ourselves. The illusion of self-sufficiency. Modern society, especially in Western cultures, highly values the idea of self-sufficiency and independence. From an early age, we are encouraged to seek individual success, to be strong, to not depend on others. This relentless pursuit of self-sufficiency can lead us to believe that vulnerability or the need for connection with others is a weakness. However, loneliness often arises when we internalize this idea that we should not depend on anyone. Humans, by nature, are interdependent. Emotional exchange and mutual support are fundamental to mental and emotional well-being. When we try to distance ourselves from this reality, we end up creating barriers to meaningful connections, distancing ourselves from others and from ourselves, which intensifies the feeling of loneliness. The culture of performance and competition. Another reason why many of us feel lonely is the constant pressure to be successful, productive, and perfect. The culture of performance leads us to believe that we are valuable only when we are producing, achieving, and demonstrating our usefulness. This can create profound loneliness because we stop being accepted for who we are and start being valued only for what we do or how we appear. Constant competition puts us in a state of continuous comparison with others. This comparison distances us, creates emotional barriers, and prevents us from sharing our vulnerabilities, fears, and weaknesses. It reinforces the idea that we are alone in our struggles because everyone around us seems to be doing well. The lack of authenticity in interactions where everyone appears to be fine, even when they are not, perpetuates isolation. The lack of purpose and meaning. Loneliness can also be a reflection of the lack of purpose or meaning in life. Many of us find ourselves in situations where we follow a predetermined path, such as a career, a routine, or a relationship that does not fulfill us. The absence of deep meaning in our actions and choices can create an inner void that manifests as loneliness. When we do not feel connected to a greater purpose, or do not see meaning in our daily activities, emotional isolation arises. This lack of meaning makes our interactions and even our own lives seem devoid of depth, which leaves us feeling even more lonely. Existential loneliness. Beyond the social and emotional dimensions of loneliness, there is also the concept of existential loneliness, which is rooted in the very human condition. Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Søren Kierkegaard discussed how the awareness of our own finitude and the search for meaning in an often indifferent universe can generate a profound sense of isolation. The perception that, in the end, we are all alone in our journey through life, facing fundamental questions such as death, freedom, and the purpose of existence, can be overwhelming. This existential loneliness is something that transcends the simple desire for physical or emotional companionship. It is a feeling that, despite being surrounded by others, our deepest experiences and thoughts are ultimately unique and incommunicable. The complexity of human relationships. Finally, human relationships themselves are complex and full of nuances. Even in the deepest connections, there are moments of misunderstandings, frustrations, and distancing. We are individual beings with different perspectives, expectations, and emotional baggage. Sometimes, loneliness arises even in close relationships, when we feel misunderstood or when the people around us cannot provide the support we need. This complexity can intensify loneliness, especially when we feel that our emotions are not validated or understood by others. This leads us to question whether we are truly capable of connecting with others in a meaningful way. Loneliness is a deeply human experience that can arise from various sources, both external and internal. It is not just the absence of company, but also the absence of meaningful connection, whether with others, with ourselves, or with a greater purpose. In a world where we are encouraged to appear strong, independent, and self-sufficient, perhaps the key to overcoming loneliness is, paradoxically, to accept our need for connection, vulnerability, and belonging. By reconnecting with ourselves and others in an authentic way, we can find a path beyond the loneliness that often seems to surround us.